Mama wina bicho vana isai muyere bejo vana isai muyere bejo. Hear us, Mother Earth, hear us. Vana isai muyere bejo. Hear us calling you, Mother Earth, my terra, Madre Tierra. Hear us calling you. You na mama, you are the mother. We na bicho, we are your children. Vana isai muyere bejo. You na mama, we na bicho. Vana isai muyere bejo. Vana isai muyere bejo. You are our mother. We na bicho, we are your children. Vana isai muyere bejo. Vana isai muyere bejo.
Welcome everyone to this special event. And what better way to start this day than with an ode to Mother Earth, Vana Isa. We're shared here in this moment to celebrate 5 years of the Shared Resources Joint Solutions program, to have honest conversations around a key question: how do we come together to protect nature and people in landscapes all around the world? My name is Lindsay Bida. I'll be your host for today. I'm honored, I'm excited to be here with you all, and I'm excited about what we have in store for you. We are here with real change makers from different sectors, with original thinkers, and I'm looking forward to the conversations. We'll be guided through this program by the beautiful voice of Denise Jana. You just heard her, and her musicians, and some other artistic surprises to activate not only our brains, but also our hearts in this moment. And last but not least, we're here with you on the other side of the screen. So happy that you're here. Thank you for that. Please use the chat to introduce yourselves to each other and to reflect on what you hear here today in the program. And in the chat, you'll also find some of the speakers that are on stage here, so you can ask questions and reflect together with them as well. Together today, we'll go on a journey from celebrating where we stand now after 5 years of this program, then acknowledging the challenges that we still see in the world, and lastly, looking forward, looking ahead into the future of how we can collaborate to protect nature and people. So, here we go. First of all, let us celebrate. Goed zo. Yes, I'm here with Koenraad Krijger now.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, the director of IUCN NL, you are, and an ecologist by training.
That is.
And a lover of nature.
Very much.
And of people as well.
As well.
All correct, nice.
All together.
Yeah, it's all one, isn't it? Yeah. IUCN NL was one of the initiating partners for this program, Shared Resources Joint Solutions. And before we really dive deep into the program and into the stories behind it, we want to ask all of you watching to also share your thoughts. The question to you is, share your key achievements and your insights from the last 5 years, especially for everyone who has been a part of this program. But also, if others are watching and have an important wisdom to share, please feel free to chip in. You can go, to share your thoughts, you can go to menti.com. That's the tool we will be using. Yes, there it is, menti.com, and you can then use the code 9626095, 9626095. and share what key achievement or insight from the last 5 years of protecting nature and people are you celebrating today with us. So please chip in. We'll be happy to hear your thoughts. All right, Koenraad, let's dive in. We're going to go through this with a number of facts and figures about the program and a number of videos to share what real change looks like in the last 5 years. And the first set of facts and figures gives us a bird's eye view of the program. So let's see it. The Shared Resources Joint Solutions program was active in 16 countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, started by 3 strategic partners, IUCN NL, WWF NL, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in 71 key biodiversity areas, around 19 large rivers, 42 million hectares of trees, and 60 important bird areas. So that's some of to give us an idea of where was this program and what was important. But the most important thing is on the next, actually, and that's the 202 local partner organizations that were involved in this program. We see a number of them here, but there were so many more. So looking at this, Koenraad, what has been most impressive to you, if you reflect on 5 years of this program?
Well, you said it. I think 202 organizations all over the world in all these countries.
Yeah.
Such a strong and influential grouping and collaboration. And we have seen that at different places. We'll see examples.
Yeah.
But to me, that was the most impressive, this teaming up.
And what was the program meant to do for those partners? What was the aim?
The most important aim was to strengthen local nature organizations to stand up for what they believe in and what they think is important for sustainable development, for just sustainable development, and also to link that to the international arena and international networks, so to work together also at a global level.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And it's maybe nice to just see one of those landscapes that we're talking about. We have a beautiful short video for you from WWF in Zambia about the river Luangwa.
When you think of the Luangwa, right, you think of wildlife because it's wild and free and it supports a lot of wildlife with that. When you go on the ground throughout the Luangwa and you meet people and you see how real the Luangwa is to them, how much it means to them, you begin to appreciate the value of it. And one thing that really struck out is the way that people speak about the Luangwa. It's almost as if they're speaking about a human being. They have so much respect for it because of the way it behaves. It gets really full, really fast, and if he gets angry, he causes a lot of damage. If a dam was to be constructed on the Luangwa, it would definitely change the way the river system behaves. The river system, from it being dry and wet, creates an environment for nature and for people. So once that changes, it will then impact people's livelihoods, the environment, and the wildlife that depends on the oxbow lakes that the Luangwa leaves behind. So WWF's vision for the Luangwa River is to keep it healthy and maintain it as a free-flowing river. WWF, together with our partners, we are getting science attached to it and making a case for why and how the dam would impact so many people's lives. We can save the Luangwa. We should save the Luangwa. It will be saved for people and for nature.
We can save the Luangwa, we should save it, and it will be saved, is what the video ended with. And it was actually saved, wasn't it?
It was.
What happened?
This is one of the successes we already achieved in 5 years, in this case in Zambia, where local organizations, together with WWF Zambia, teamed up and supported the local plea to stop the dam, working together with governance and the private sector. And it worked.
It actually worked.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. That brings us also to the next set of facts and figures that we want to share with you at home, which is what the program contributed to in terms of the laws and the policies and the norms that were actually shifted and changed. So we see here that 214 laws and policies were implemented, so the ones that were already there for sustainable and inclusive development but weren't actually in action. 434 laws and policies were blocked, adopted, improved, and 149 times partners succeeded in voicing what they wanted to stand up for. And in 175 cases, these organizations were also strengthened to be able to do that better. And that's impressive stuff, Konrad?
Yes. It's numbers. I think even more impressive is that behind each of these numbers is a case like we just saw, and we will see more examples.
Yeah.
So if you add that up, that's big.
Yeah, it is. And it makes me wonder about, this is big stuff. And I can imagine that if you're a local organization and there's a policy or a law, that can feel hard to do something about that or to change that. And I wonder what this program maybe taught us about how do you change things that are maybe hard to change, that are more structural, that seem to be set in stone. How do you even start doing that?
Yeah, well, it is hard. It is difficult to do, but it can be done. And we have seen it. And I think there's many lessons, but if I take one, is that often systems change is perceived as being very complex and difficult and time-consuming with small steps. And here we have some examples where it can be actually quite practical and where you can make very clever shortcuts in the system to improve things and to really make steps forward. Shortcuts
in the system. Maybe we can see if the next video is a good illustration of that. A video from Indonesia.
We are working in Bulungan, in one district in North Kalimantan province. Then this landscape is a river basin. It's quite big. It's very beautiful. Still have many forests and some wildlife, but there's many threats. Because the area is already covered by permit, oil palm, timber, logging, even mining. So we are working together with the support from IUCN, try to minimizing the threats and then give more space to the people to have a voice, and then give also assistance to the local government to encourage them to make a better policy on development. It's very important to involving the financial institution in the advocacy work, because basically they put their money to the industry. So somehow they also have responsibility, and we hope that the financial institution also can set up more better policy on the protecting the rights of the people and protecting the environmental, and asking their client to follow and apply the standard. The added value for a financial institution, I think they can use the CSO or NGOs who work in the field like us as their ear and as their eyes.
Yeah, that was a video by Sawit Watch, one of the partners in the program. Is that what you mean by a shortcut in the system?
That's what I mean. Here you see financial institutions, in this case in the Netherlands, on one hand of the complex system, they're connected directly to organizations on the ground that are in the landscapes.
Yeah, so collaboration as a factor in systems change.
Exactly.
I want to go to our last batch of facts and figures about this program. And this is also where it gets very real, because this is results. The Shared Resources Joint Solutions Program actually contributed towards achieving this. So 2 million hectares of forest are now under sustainable governance. 23 million hectares of river basin are under integrated water management, and 5,000 square kilometers of farmland converted. And maybe it's nice to just throw in our last little video right away to see what that looks like. What does forest under sustainable governance actually look like? A video.
El aire, el agua, la tierra fértil para el cultivo o forraje son servicios ecosistémicos que nos brindan el Chaco y el Pantanal. En las últimas décadas hemos explotado el Chaco y el Pantanal en mayor medida de lo que sus ecosistemas puedan recuperarse. En Bolivia es la dotación ilegal de tierras, la exploración hidrocarburífera y el avance descontrolado del agro, mientras que en el Paraguay son los eventos climáticos y la expansión de la frontera agrícola los mayores peligros para los ecosistemas nativos. Conciliar los intereses de la producción con la conservación es el objetivo de la iniciativa Pantanal Chaco o PACHA, una alianza de organizaciones civiles de Bolivia y Paraguay que trabaja con autoridades, productores, pueblos originarios y científicos para promover la gestión sustentable de esta región. Los ecosistemas no conocen fronteras, por tanto, su conservación necesita alianzas y soluciones que trasciendan las fronteras. Desde el 2016, los socios de PACHA han impulsado la creación de 7 áreas protegidas en la región, que abarcan un área total de 7 millones de hectáreas bajo protección. Estos resultados cobran importancia especial, ya que mediante corredores biológicos aseguran la conectividad entre ecosistemas que por su interrelación compleja no podríamos protegerlos por separado.
Wow. I want to go. Shall we go?
Shall we go?
Shall we go? I want to ask you my last question, because this is where it becomes real, as I said. This is real impact, and that's felt at the local level. Can you share some last bits of wisdom, insights on what were important factors to make that impact real at the local level, to not just get stuck in a story of how it could be, but to make it felt?
Yeah. But first of all, I would like to point out is this one point which is often overlooked, is that local nature conservation can have very big scale impact. Sometimes people think that you need to go with big investments by big players, but here we see a very good example of how local conservation can make huge impact.
Yeah, and we should name them, Iniciativa Pantanal Chaco.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a very clear illustration, and what is key is here what you see, a strong local constituency who has the local know-how, who has the legitimacy, yeah, who stand up for the people and their rights, and at the same time teaming up with international organizations that connect the network and the international know-how. And that's a very strong combination yeah, through which you can achieve these types of results. Lastly, it takes time. I mean, also this yeah, example patience. Is not just something that was brought about in 5 years. It builds on long-term investments. Exactly. So we need to keep on investing in these organizations. Yeah. Very important.
What should our timelines be, you think, instead of 5 years? How long?
10, 15 years, 15 definitely.
Years. Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank
Konrad.
you so much
really nice
for
to
having
reflect
me.
Together. On 5 years, so much has happened. This is just some examples, of course, but very insightful.
Thank you.
And I'm also curious about our Mentimeter results. Did anyone actually chip in? Yes, it looks like it. So key achievements and insights from the last 5 years of protecting nature and people. So indeed, strengthened collaboration as a shortcut to systems change. Citizen science event where local leaders from around the world shared their stories. Partnerships developed. More citizen science, that's an interesting one. And co-creating between scientists and citizens. So scientists are actually an important party here that is mentioned more and more. Yeah, having been able to get very small local organizations on board in Zambia. The more local, the better. Thank you for everyone for chipping in. Also the test in the middle. I'm now here. We did a little magic trick.
Very good.
Yeah, and I'm here with Kirsten Schuit, the CEO of WWF in the Netherlands.
Nice to meet you.
And I hope that I'm also here with Anthony de Kemp. Anthony, can you hear us? From the embassy, the Dutch embassy in Cotonou. Yes, there you are.
And, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, Anthony, Head of Development Cooperation at the embassy. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be able to participate.
Yeah. All right, Kirsten, I want to ask you, because we just heard a number of stories, saw insights from the people watching. What is it for you? What's the main insight or lesson from 5 years of this program?
Well, what you saw in the films as well, and I think we saw it on the Mentimeter as well, is how crucial it is to collaborate with local communities. Mm-hmm. And by working together with local communities, we increase our influence and we increase our impact. And I think throughout the program, it has taught us a lot how we can better do that, how we can better make sure that the voices of local communities are heard and that they get a seat at the table in the design, in the execution, and in the monitoring of projects. Yeah. And I think the various projects has taught us that.
And that sounds actually so logical, right? To involve local communities, but apparently that's not something that always goes right.
No, I mean, I think we all talk about it and we all say how important it is, because in the end, when conservation is owned by local communities, by the people who live there, it's the most sustainable. But how you do that in the right way. And it goes back to things as, you know, we say we listen to communities, but what's listening? Yeah. What really is listening, and how do you do that in the right way?
So what is listening after 5 years of this?
To me, listening is to really go deep and to go really deep listening into what are people really saying without coming to the table with all these predetermined cases and thoughts, and really start with a question, what do you think, rather than coming with tools and solutions.
Exactly, and also speaking the language that is spoken. Yeah, in many different ways, Deep listening. Anthony, I want to ask you, because the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been the third strategic partner in this program. And as such, Dutch embassies have been actively supporting the program in the different countries. So from your perspective, being so locally present, what is the value that you see of a program like this one?
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think if you look, it's important to look at the context. If you look at the context here in Benin, we see a government that's really willing to invest in biodiversity, but there's always a risk that economic interests get priority over nature. And examples here are, for instance, intensive cotton farming, which is leading to land degradation, and overfishing in the lakes as well as in the sea. And precisely what we did see with the involvement of local NGOs, and I couldn't agree more with Kirsten and with Konrad, with the involvement of local communities, we really were really able to provoke a change and to accomplish improvements in biodiversity. And helping to improve nature.
Yeah, because if I hear you understand what you're saying correctly, that if you don't strengthen local organizations and local civil society, then the risk is that economic interest will actually be more dominant.
Absolutely, that's what we see here in the country. In principle, government is willing and sees the importance of protection of the environment, protection of nature, also to attract tourism. Yeah. But at the same time, for instance, interests in cotton or in fishing are very dominant, and
Yeah.
so we really need these organizations to
represent
help
the interest of their environment as well, because they depend on it directly, of course. Yeah. Kirsten, we're almost done celebrating here already, and we're soon going to zoom in more into some of the things that actually Anthony is also referring to, more the challenges that still persist. What do you still see as a big challenge or a big ambition that we really need to rise up to?
Well, look, the challenges are immense, and I've been in conservation for about 25 years, and I've only seen the complexities increase. But let me stick to one, and I would say one of the big challenges relates to the role that we play as NGOs. And, you know, we work very closely with governments in many of the places you saw, but we're not government. How do we ensure that we use our influence to uphold human rights, that our partners uphold those same values and norms? And that in a space where we can see, in many places where we work, actually the civic space is decreasing. And it's becoming more and more difficult for us as NGOs to take our role. And I think in that complex playing field, we have to conserve nature. That is a big challenge.
Yeah, that is a big challenge. That is a big challenge. And we will zoom into that challenge more. But for now, as we round off our celebration, because the most important people that are watching now are the partners, of course, in the 16 different countries. And all the work was actually there, right? The real work. So if you could say something to those partners watching, what would it be?
My number one word would be a lot of respect. I mean, it's you guys on the ground, the partners on the ground that are doing all the work. You're there, we're here talking about it, but you guys are there doing all the work, and I have a lot of respect for everything that our partners have done, and thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, respect and appreciation. Wow. To round off this first part of our journey together, we have a little preview for everyone watching. A special video will be made of this program. And yeah, we have a little trailer, fresh off the press this morning, actually. A wonderful message from Myanmar. Back to me. The trailer will come later. And we have actually, I'm very excited about this part of the program. These people next to me are special to me, and we're gonna listen to a little musical intermezzo. We just heard the Ode to Mama Isa. We're listening to Denise Jana on vocals, Wolf Martini on guitar, and Walter Muringen on percussion. And Denise was born, like my father, in beautiful Suriname, like Walter as well. Wolf was born in Germany, also beautiful, but different. But Denise toured the world. She performed for the likes of Nelson Mandela. She played North Sea Jazz Festival 7 times, and now she's here for us with a special song, especially written for today. Denise Jana, here you go.
What we're doing. Mother Earth has been treated wrong. The time is now to show appreciation, correct what we can, get damage undone. So now we've all come together to protect our nature. Mother Nature is worthwhile. People everywhere make the connection. All together we will strive. You are there for me. Together we're there for her. By my side, yeah, me promise you. This is my promise. Oh yeah, I'll be there for you are there for us. Madre Tierra, escucha nuestra promesa. Mother Earth, here is calling you. Nuestra promesa, Mama Tierra, we respect you. resources and joint solutions. We're standing together for Mother Earth. People everywhere make the connection. The world is ours, so spread the word. Oh, it's a beautiful world. It's all about life, our future, our children. Let's make strive. We will do what is best. Stand together as one, rejoicing pure nature as we go along. Yeah, this is our promise. We'll be there for you are there for us. This is our promise to Mother Earth. C'est notre promesse à vous, maman. We promise to be there for you. You're always there for us. Madre Tierra, escucha nuestra promesa. Vanessa, Maitera, dengarkan kami Ibu Pertiwi. We respect you. And we love you. Yes, we do. This is our world, nuestro mundo. This is unsere Welt, c'est notre monde. Ah, eu nossa terra, mãe terra, Vanessa, Madre Tierra, here is calling you. Dit is onze mooie wereld, naar die mooie grondtaboe. This is our promise to Mother Earth. Hey, this is our promise to Mother Earth. Hey, hey.
Woo! Thank you, thank you, beautiful. We're going to the next phase in our journey, challenge. Let's talk about the challenges that still remain. Ruth Alipaz is an indigenous leader from the Bolivian Amazon. She belongs to the river community of San Jose de Uchipiamonas. And she's a strong advocate for ecosystems and communities in the Amazon and beyond through her organization Kuntiokap and other platforms. And she's here with an urgent call for us.
Nosotros los pueblos indígenas que venimos defendiendo nuestros territorios y particularmente las mujeres indígenas en Bolivia y en diferentes partes del mundo que vemos que la vida está siendo destruida en el planeta, vemos que aquí hay un conflicto de intereses, que las empresas tienen poder para imponer proyectos que vienen destruyendo la vida en el planeta. Eso nos muestra que se está invirtiendo demasiado tiempo, energía, recursos y muchísimo, muchísimo dinero para destruir el planeta, pero no para salvarlo. ¿Y por qué se da esta cuestión? Es que los gobiernos están más comprometidos, están más preocupados porque las empresas son las que dan dinero, las empresas son las que producen dinero, pero ¿qué hay de la vida? Si no tenemos vida, ¿para qué queremos tanto dinero? ¿Para qué quieren acumular tanto dinero a costa de la vida misma del planeta, de la vida de nosotros mismos, de la vida de la biodiversidad que existe en el planeta? Por otro lado, las organizaciones de la sociedad civil todavía siguen discutiendo planes a 2030 que no están encontrando una conexión con los territorios para realizar acciones que verdaderamente vayan a proteger la vida, la biodiversidad. Ese es un interés común que tenemos, pero no estamos conectando los recursos todavía para poder hacerlo. Por tanto, nosotros como pueblos indígenas que venimos defendiendo el agua, los recursos, la biodiversidad, los conocimientos, todos los saberes que tenemos de la naturaleza, del planeta, se están perdiendo porque no estamos encontrando el apoyo ni desde el gobierno central ni de las organizaciones civiles y estamos totalmente desconectados. Creo que es un llamado, esto tiene que ser un llamado para que todos pongamos el mismo esfuerzo, el mismo tiempo, los mismos recursos, la misma cantidad de dinero en salvar el planeta y la vida en el planeta, los recursos como el agua, los animales, todas las criaturas que existen en el planeta y a nosotros mismos. Piensa en tu bebé, en tu bebé que acaba de nacer, qué recursos va a hacer uso en este planeta si todo lo estamos destruyendo ahora y no estamos dejando nada. Creo que son temas fundamentales que tenemos que poner en acción ahora para salvar y cuidar la vida en este planeta, que es nuestra única casa que tenemos para vivir.
Wow, I have nothing to add to what this strong, wise woman has just told us. But I would like to reflect on it with my two next guests. We have here Leon Dulce and Bas Geerts. Leon Dulce is calling in from the Philippines. He's a national coordinator for the Kalikasan People's Network for the Environment, who prevent environmental exploitation in a network of local NGOs and protect marginalized communities from harm caused. And then our other conversation partner is Bas Geerts, who is joining us as the head of sustainability at Cefetra, which is part of Bewa Agri Supply and Trade, a very large company that purchases raw materials in several parts of the world, delivers them to trade partners across Europe. And Bas has previously worked in the conservation world as well, is very passionate about nature, aiming to mainstream sustainability throughout supply chains. So both very noble missions, gentlemen. The main question that we want to answer together here is, what pressing challenges do we see in coming together to protect nature and people, and maybe some of the challenges behind those challenges? So Leon, let me start with you. Leon, I had the pleasure of meeting you last year in Amsterdam when you were here. I always remembered your story and your hard work, your dedication to the cause. I want to ask you, in very short, what have you achieved, or are you proud to have achieved, and what's still the greatest challenge that you face in your work?
Thanks, Lynn. I think one of the greatest achievements that we've taken in this 5-year process is the increased recognition, public recognition of the work of environmental defenders on the ground. As was said earlier, it was an increasingly challenging situation to do environmental protection, environmental defense work in a context of shrinking democratic and civic spaces, and especially here in the Philippines, facing an increasingly authoritarian regime actually made it more difficult for us to be able to assert our rights to the environment, to natural resources. And the fact that the program has actually given space for village communities to be able to discuss the challenges they face, increasing militarization, harassments, and human rights violations in international spaces like Vice News, New York Times. It really helps the international community, even the national community, to understand what we are facing and to demonstrate solidarity and support for communities on the ground. So that result is really the protection of important critical landscapes hand in hand from the village up to the international level, such as in the fisherfolk communities in Manila Bay or the indigenous peoples of Nueva Vizcaya up against large-scale mines. And even here in the capital region in Metro Manila, where we are facing a lot of attacks and we are seeing
Hey, we lost
Hello.
Leon there for a second, and we got Peter in, who we'll see later on in the program. But if I just summarize what Leon was just saying, is that indeed what Kirsten was actually also referring to, the shrinking civic space, the pressure coming from the government, and yet the environmental defenders that are still going strong. Leon, I think we lost you here for a second, but I want to then ask Buzz to reflect a little bit. Buzz, are you still with us? Because I know that also we have prepared together with Leon, and Leon also let us know that, of course, there's trouble with the private sector coming into certain communities, the government actually not setting the standards that are needed to safeguard environmental human rights or keep... Leon, you're back. Welcome back.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah, I was just summarizing what you said about the shrinking civic space and the government that's actually letting a lot of environmental human rights be broached. So communities are not kept safe. Now that you're back, Leon, I actually just want to finish asking you, because we can't get around the whole pandemic that we all find ourselves in. How has the COVID-19 pandemic maybe made your work even more challenging or not? Bas, you're back. Have we lost Leon, or is he still? Okay, all right. Bas, it's you and me. So yeah, please do reflect on this relationship between the private sector and government and how communities are maybe not put first.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've been in the NGO space for long, and through that 20 years of experience, I've also was in the opportunity to be in touch with a lot of local people, and really that was always very heartfelt. So it really drives me to what I'm doing still today, because that's really where the impact can be truly felt. Having said that, we also try to reach out as much as possible to the local people. There's many difficult barriers to cross, cultural barriers, language barriers, and so on and so forth. So we always try to find ways to bridge those barriers as good as we can through local partners. And we also try to go to the regions as much as we can. You already referred to COVID. Earlier this year in March, we were in Brazil and Paraguay, and we wanted to also go to Argentina to visit not only our suppliers, but also people around those suppliers to see, okay, what's really going on in the ground for our risk analysis. And that's what we try to do as much as possible, but with COVID in the way, it gets even more difficult. But yeah,
to reach that level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I'm curious about that, because you are trying to kind of change the system from the within. You're trying to make supply chains more sustainable. What are you able to do, but also especially given the block that we find ourselves in about the challenges, what are you not able to do in terms of making these supply chains more sustainable?
Yeah, your question was about working with governments. Well, since that's fairly difficult in many of the regions where goods are sourced from, we actually seek to engage more with many other stakeholders but the government. We still reach out to governments as much as we can to see, okay, how can we work together? But still, we find it's more effective to work with many other stakeholders. I hope that will change at one point. But the reality at the moment, for us at least, is that we work together more effectively with many other organizations, be it local NGOs, international NGOs like WWF and IUCN, but also local partners that actually can bridge that gap that I referred to earlier.
Yeah. And also, I can imagine reflecting on the supply chains themselves, they're very long, right? And it's not always easy to track even where something comes from that you are trading. That's the nature of the sector, I can imagine. Are you able to see what you want to see in terms of what is happening on the ground at the level of the farms where raw resources come from?
The real answer is no, but luckily there's also an increasingly so. And that's very largely based on trust, and trust is built up very slowly. So that's really a process that we've been into. I've only been with Safitra for just over a year now, but Safitra has been working for the last 10, 15 years to establish those local partnerships. And then you see that trust is finally paying off. So we get more and more insights into what's really going on in our supply chains. A commodity is being mixed and bulked throughout the supply chain. So that's where you lose traceability and as such also transparency to a large extent. But if you have the trust with all these stakeholders at these bulking places in the supply chain, you can get actually through that. But it's a very slow process. And as said, it's really built on building trust, and building trust takes time.
Takes time,
you
exactly.
need to move fast. Yeah.
In that sense, I'm quite kind of marveling in the insights so far that are quite soft in a way, but very powerful. We need trust, we need deep listening, we need patience, actually, we need time. And what I want to ask both of you, Leon, now that you're also back, I know that environmental defenders like Leon, you have a lot of trust amongst the communities that you work with, and you have a lot of eyes and ears as well, as we saw in the video of Indonesia. And Bas is looking for that trust. And I wonder, how could someone like Bas, someone in the private sector, and someone like Leon, an environmental defender, how could you become allies, maybe? How could you help each other in these challenges that you face? And learn to trust each other as well.
Yeah, I think the private sector could really honestly demonstrate how far or to what extent are they willing to go beyond the bottom line. No? The bottom line, which is the models of endless growth and profit. And then the baseline. The baseline is usually the very lax minimum standards of ecological hotspots like the Philippines, where the multinationals and transnationals are operating in. How willing are they to go beyond these lines to give our common home a lifeline, no? to give our environment a lifeline through necessary solutions such as having a green recovery plan, just transition, and really supporting genuine democracy, especially at the landscape level. So for instance, it has been a long-standing proposal in our advocacy work to have or to establish an environment and human rights protection fund that would give communities and civil society the capacity to engage in multipartite governance on fair grounds, on fair footing. So why not wait? Why wait for the mandate from the state? And I think the state is not interested in this. If the private sector is really intent to have a deep listening to communities, why not invest in human rights immediately? Why not support communities in their efforts to really conserve and wisely utilize the natural resources on the ground? So I guess more of a show of faith from the private sector that we are hoping to see if they truly want to cooperate with communities on the ground who is not really operating on anything beyond the basic necessities, the life that is integrated in the air, the land, the water, the nature that we are operating in.
The basics of life on the planet. Bas, can I ask you to reflect on what Leon is saying, but also say what you would need from someone like him?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would love to, but I could not hear anything of what was just said. There was no sound when the previous speaker was on, so I cannot reflect on what he was saying, but at least I can give my part of the story.
I can repeat it for you in short.
Yes, please.
Leon started out by talking about the bottom line and the baseline, as in the bottom line of making profit and the baseline of protecting basic human rights and environmental human rights. And he was talking about how companies, the private sector, could show their intent of actually setting the standard higher and not waiting for governments, but rather maybe instilling a human rights fund, independent fund that communities could use, or that environmental defenders could use. So really showing the intention of, hey, we're trying to raise the bar here. So if you could reflect on that, but also maybe, reflect on what you would need to be able to raise that bar.
Yeah. I'm all for raising the bar. That's also why I do what I do, and
Yeah,
also why the
exactly.
company is doing that. Well, not necessarily a fund, but we also set up our own standard to raise the bar to make sure that farmers could reach a certain higher level that had all aspects of sustainability in them, also community engagement. So that's one thing that we did. And we also help them to go to higher steps from there onwards, to actually take them on that journey together with us. And that's what we invest in. That's what we help the farmers with. And what we see also in our supply chains is that it's, in many instances, it's fairly difficult for farmers to engage with local communities because they come from a different point of view. And we see that it's difficult. So where we can, we help them to establish that trust base in order to kickstart that process. Very tiny baby steps at a time, but it starts somewhere. And that's why we have the standard that we have to engage farmers and to from there walk the journey together.
Yeah.
Establishing a fund might be an option, definitely something to explore further, but that's not something that we have on our agenda just now. But I think just making sure that there is a connection between what we do, and it's not just us, but the people in our supply chains up to the farmers in origin, and people around that, so the people affected by that farm potentially. I think that's what we should be aiming for collectively.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, I know there's a lot more to say when we really dive into these challenges, but already what has been shared now is important, that the civic space is shrinking to safeguard environmental human rights for communities. It can be difficult to engage with local communities, as Bas said. It can also be difficult to have real visibility of what is happening and trust between the different parties that do need to come together, because it's not anyone's, anyone's sole responsibility. This is something that we need all eyes and ears on, and all capabilities and resources to change. So I know this is quite unsatisfactory for all of us, and that's good, I think, because that makes us think in new ways. I want to thank you for now, Bas and Leon. Please stay with us in the chat if you can, so that we can reflect together with you on what has been said. Thank you to both of you. I want to take us to the last phase of our journey, which is thinking about the future. Collaborate. All right, the question of the day, is Bio here? Yes, Bio is here. Bio, my newfound brother. Hello. Bio here. I'm going to introduce you. How are you? I'm so happy to see your face here in front of me.
Happy to see you too, sister.
Dr. Bio Akomolafe, I'm going to introduce you. He hails from Nigeria. He lives in India. He's in Chennai right now. He seems to carry the whole entire world in his brilliant mind. He's a speaker, a public intellectual, a lecturer, an author, read his books, a facilitator, and he's the director of the Emergence Network. And that's a constellation of humans and non-humans that, when you are lucky, surface when there's a high need for alternative new modes of thinking and engaging and doing. And I think the challenges have shown us that that's exactly what we need. And we're the lucky ones today. Bio, can you please share your reflections? We've heard some of the challenges, but where do we go from here?
Thank you, sister. Well, I wasn't always able to tap into the conversations happening, some technological difficulties, but I would say this, that I feel that the reason why I'm here at this point in time is to share one thing. And these are the reflections of my people from West Africa, specifically Nigeria, the Yoruba people, that in order to find our way, we must become lost. Now, that doesn't sound like something practical to say in view of all the really practical problems and challenges we're facing as a species. But I want to repeat it. that in order to find our way, we must become lost. Let me put some context here. During the pandemic year, which is what we're still in 2020, snuck into the headlines of the day about the coronavirus, I read some news about an oil drilling company in the United States called ConocoPhillips. And they had come across a solution, or they were championing a solution to the thawing of permafrost, to the melting of permafrost. What they came across was something called chillers. So it's a technology that you throw into the ground, and it's able to shock or freeze or refreeze the process, stop permafrost from thawing. And what was ironic about this solution was the ideologies that came packaged into the solution. Because why they would throw chillers into the ground is to not only freeze the ground or refreeze the ground, it's to enable them to continue drilling. It's to enable the same activities that led to the Anthropocene to be repeated. And so in times when we have toxic repeatability, when the cyclicity of problems and challenges are packaged back into solutions, we need to slow down. We need a different approach. Now, I'm sure all the wonderful conversations here give us a lot to learn about the collaborations, the technologies, the ideas, the invitation to listen. All should be applauded. But I think in a time as we are right now, we ought to notice, or I think there's an invitation to notice, that solutions are not neutral. Solutions are ideological. Listening is not neutral. Listening is political. That is, the ways we attempt to address our common challenges, our crisis, is part of the crisis. So my invitation is, we need a sense of humility. We need a way to come to earth, to fall to the earth. We need paradigms of humility. Sometimes what we package as solutions, only tend to repeat or coddle us in a paradigm of anthropocentrism and leave us in a way of acting, a territory of behaving and acting that leaves much to be desired. I think we need more than solutions in this time. I think we need other things. I think we need different types of inquiry that bring us to the earth and allow us to listen to the earth, allow us to let the world speak. This is the risk of inquiry that is packaged into the idea of getting lost. And so this is what I would like to say then, that the times are urgent, let us slow down. And slowing down is an invitation to broaden our awareness, to broaden our sociality, and notice that there are more in the room than just human agency, human actions, human imperatives, and modern dreams of arrival. That's what I'll say for now, sister.
Wow. Thank you, Brother Bayo. Your words are appreciated, and they come at the right time. As we go into this conversation, let us slow down. Do you feel like you've slowed down listening to Bayo?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's not talk about problems packed into solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's also try to be humble in this conversation, and let's try to support each other in that. Mm-hmm. Shall we agree on that going into the discussion?
Absolutely.
It's a game of yes and. No yes but, or no, that's not how it works. So let's play a game of yes and. And the main question that we will be answering going forward into this panel is, how do we collaborate to achieve change on the ground? So actual change in the landscapes. And what are important directions that we need to think about to get there? Because changes need to happen at many levels, and maybe especially in our own selves, as Bayo has encouraged us to think about. Humility, inquiry. Before we go into the panel discussion, I want to invite you watching again to ask your questions to the panel. So in the Mentimeter, you're going to go to the same menti.com with the same code that you already were in. We'll see it in the image very soon. And the question to you is, what are your questions to the panel on how we can collaborate to achieve change on the ground? Exactly. What's your question to the panel on how we can collaborate to truly protect nature and people locally? All right, I'm going to introduce our panel. We are here with two of you physically next to me and two of us in cyberspace. The first one is Gina Mumba Chiwela. And Gina is the executive director of the People's Action Forum in Zambia. Hi, Gina. And your organization is a partner in the Shared Resources Joint Solutions Program. And you have a background in adult education, community mobilizing, and offering support in claiming rights to communities. And you're a very proud and excited recent grandmother of an 8-week-old baby. Congrats.
Thank you.
Then the other lady on our panel sitting here next to me is Carola van Rijnsoever, a true force for good, from what I've read about you. The Director of Inclusive Green Growth, Ambassador of Sustainable Development, and the Arctic Ambassador at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, and also the co-chair of the NDC partnership that supports countries in achieving the climate targets. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Then going to our other members of the panel, let me go to you, Dion Nell. So happy that you're here with us as well.
Lovely to be with you.
You're the CEO of the Global Resilience Partnership for now, because soon you'll be going to WWF NL as the Chief Conservation Officer. Congrats to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the Global Resilience Partnership is a very useful experience for us here today, because it's an independent partnership of public and private organizations that aim to support the most vulnerable of people and societies.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. And then our last panelist is Peter van der Werf. Hi, Peter.
Thank you for having us.
Peter, you're calling in from my hometown, Delft. And you're the team lead on engagement at Robeco, international asset management firm, where you have diverse knowledge on chemicals, consumer staples, labor rights, sustainable investing, impact investing, supply chain management. And I know that you started out with a master's degree in environmental sciences. So that says a lot about your passions and where your heart is.
Thank you for having me, Lynn. I'm looking forward to this engaging conversation.
Yeah, me as well. So let's dive in here. I want to ask the ladies on our panel, actually, to reflect, first of all, on some of the challenges that we've heard just now. If I summarize it very roughly, without a lot of nuance, is that from Ruth's speech and from what we heard Leon said and Bas say, that there's sometimes we cannot find each other and share responsibility for the task at hand of protecting nature and people. Sometimes we kind of shift responsibility to the next, to the next, to the next, without really being able to work together and say, okay, let's do that, and you do that, and you help me, and together we aim higher. I want to ask you, Gina, how do you think, what's important if we want to get out of that dynamic and rather find each other and work together? What's important for a new dynamic?
Hello. I think the most critical thing for us to move to a new dynamic is to recognize the fact that we are coming from different angles, different interests, and different responsibilities. So it's also to recognize that in the working environment we are in, there seems to be a crisis of responsibility, because there are many parts to this, to solving the problem. There's government responsibility, there's NGO responsibility, the private sector, and the community itself. So I would dare say the first point of starting afresh or coming together is actually recognizing that each one has a responsibility and not moving it on to the next person.
recognizing everyone's distinct role in this as well is what I hear you say. So not everyone has to take the same portion in what we need to do, but recognizing what we need to do. Carola, I would also like you to reflect on it, because of course you cannot speak for the government of the world, obviously. But just now in our conversation between the private sector and environmental defender, the government voice was not represented. Yet it was said that the government has a big role to play in raising the bar, in setting certain standards. How do you reflect on the role of the government in changing this dynamic?
Well, I absolutely think government has a role to play in protecting our Earth and protecting its people and enabling them to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And through different agreements we set out the path for all of us, the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. Yeah. We actually know what we have to do, to get in a better place. But the government's role doesn't stop there. Of course, we are also there to enable people to work together and to bring the right frameworks. And I'm very happy that in Paris we also agreed to invest in protecting the Earth from heating up even further. And also, for example, we have a role to play in protecting environmental rights defenders.
Yeah.
To stand by their side instead of work against them.
Yeah, exactly.
So definitely governments have a role to play here. Also, of course, to create mechanisms that helps the private sector to invest in nature. And I think this week, with the appointment of a Dutchman, Frank Elderson, on the board of the European Central Bank, we have a strong voice for nature in this very powerful body. And it reinforces my optimism that we are on a path where we all gain the wisdom to invest in the right things.
Yeah, yeah. That's already some big rules that you're mentioning there. The protecting, the helping invest, and also the creation of a unified agenda that we can get behind. And I want to surf this wave of optimism and positivity while being mindful of what Bio just told us, to not just package solutions or make solutions problems or the other way around in the same vein of thinking, but being humble and optimistic at the same time. I want to ask my panelists, my guests here, of what do you think is an inspiring direction, something that could work, an intervention, a strategy, or a way of thinking that could actually help us ahead in protecting nature and people? Peter, can I give you the word first? What could really work?
Yes, from Robeco's perspective as a global asset manager and an important player also in financial markets, I think there's a lot of need for collective action between the financial parties to really advance in how we deal with nature. At the same time, there are also large challenges in how to quantify our impact with our investments and to really see how we can do that. So to that end, Robeco has signed the Finance for Biodiversity Pledge that was launched at the UN General Assembly in September this year, together with 25 other financial institutions. And to us, this is really an important commitment because with this, we've defined that by 2024, we will have developed a biodiversity footprint of our investments and have also set targets to minimize the negative impact and to align with the still to be decided outcomes of the Convention on Biological Diversity that will be held in Kunming next year. So I think this would really be, for us, a path where we hope other financial institutions can join so that we also can collectively turn all of that invested capital as a force for good.
All right. And to kind of follow up on this, because we know that a pledge can be so important as a unifying agenda again, and it can give a certain, direction to our efforts. But how do we really make sure that a pledge like that can again be felt locally, that something changes that you can see in the landscapes themselves? Peter, if you want to react on that, or another panel member. Dion really wants to say something about this.
I'm happy for Peter to go first, but
Peter, do you want to go first, or you want to let Dion?
Yeah. So maybe a short reflection there is in 2019 we set a palm oil policy where we've defined membership of the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil and also a progress in certification as a minimum threshold for us to invest in palm oil producing companies. And this is on the back of years of my work in engaging with these companies and finding that there wasn't always sufficient progress on the ground. So this is, I think, where financial institutions can set minimum standards that then ultimately also affect where our capital is flowing and which companies are supported that are actually making the changes that we require them to do on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just signing a piece of paper that this is my pledge, but it's actually taking capital out of the companies that do not adhere to what is in that piece of paper. Yeah, Dion, you wanted to reflect as well.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on that challenge you've set us, Lynn, and I was reflecting on Bio's words of not repackaging solutions, but thinking of deeper paradigm shifts. And the initiative that stands out to me is an initiative called LIFE-AR. It's the Least Developed Countries Initiative for Adaptation and Resilience. And this is 47 countries, the least developed countries of the world, coming together and saying, we want to do adaptation and resilience to climate change on our terms. And so we will set the agenda and we will speak to donor countries about the agenda that we want to finance. So no longer a situation of donor countries in the north financing adaptation in the south and in least developed countries, but a shift in the power dynamics where the least developed countries can set the agenda of how they wish to pursue adaptation and resilience. One of the key things that they've put into that piece of work is a commitment to shift the amount of finance that goes to the local level. So currently, I don't know if everybody is aware, but less than 10% of climate finance actually ends up at the local level. So 90% of the finance is being absorbed by intermediary organizations. And this initiative, the least developed countries, 47 countries coming together, have said, we want to shift that to 70%. So 70% of the climate finance that comes into our countries, we want to get to the local level. I think that's the sort of...
because what happens with it at the local level?
Well, I think these are the people that are facing the brunt of the climate impacts. They're also the ones which have the best local knowledge of how to respond. They have important data, knowledge about where to respond, where vulnerabilities lie in their societies, and are able to respond. So I think these are the sorts of deeper shifts.
Because I think we all agree on that, especially in this room, that we need to shift that power and have way more agenda-setting power in the places where it matters most in terms of climate adaptation and resilience, etc. But what do we need to change then to be able to make that happen? From both sides, what do we need?
Well, I would say there's 3 levels of change that need to happen. And I think for too long we've gone to one level. And the level we've focused on predominantly has been on building the capacity of the South. So we think institutions in the South are wanting to play a bigger role, so we need to build the capacity of those institutions to absorb more funding, to play a more directive role. My sense is that that is an important part. I think capacity building and learning and developing the ability to play that directive role is, but the second part is the donor world and the private sector needs to adapt the way that they're financing, the processes, their risk appetite, etc., to be able to ensure that the funding is flowing into those organizations. And then the third is the political appetite. And this is where an initiative like the LIFE-AR, which provides the political commitment to these to this way of working and this direction of travel is important. So I think it's local level, it's the donor level, and at the political level.
Okay, so we're reflecting on several directions here already in terms of the government facilitating green investments, stepping up in protecting human rights defenders, having a unified agenda, to collective actions and the pledges with no compromise follow-ups to those pledges, and then the shifting the agenda-setting power. I want to hear from Gina, actually. Gina, what do you think are directions that we should be feeling, thinking, acting in if we really want a change, if we really want to come together to protect nature and people?
Yes. Following on the last 2 interventions, I think the key issue here is coming to understanding our responsibilities, one, understanding how everyone's role is. When you talk about the for least countries to come together and say we want support on our terms, that is absolutely critical. But I would like to go a little further down to say, if at the government level, our LDCs do not go further down to the community, to engage the community, we will still not get the meaningful change that we need to have. So it is absolutely critical if those that are intervening and looking at, as Leon pointed out earlier, looking at their bottom line, if they want to be sure that their funds, are not just going to sea, let the community be meaningfully engaged. And by this, I mean going to the community and speaking to them about their situation. I would love to give an example of an intervention that we have been engaged in, and that's looking at the lower Kafue Basin. The Kafue River is part of that water system that was shown earlier, where the Luangwa River is part. There was a report card on the health of the basin that we came in to support and bring this to the community. I think it's important to understand or not assume that communities cannot understand, all these studies and surveys, because what we found when we went into the community was them responding by, yes, we've had people come here, do their studies, ask us questions, and they didn't come back. Now, if we want communities to be part of the change, we must, first of all, when we engage them, come back and share the results of what we are discussing. Two, be part, or have them be part of the solution. We don't bring solutions to the community, but we come and as we have found, the community is immediately able to identify what is going wrong and is even able to give solutions. So we have to, take in hand that element. And so a lot of what is happening, at the community level, with communities reacting to climate change, some of the practices are exacerbating, this negative effect of change. So we need to look at alternatives. What are the viable and profitable alternatives that we can share with community? And I'm thinking about considering community-led development. How can the community itself, be the leader in bringing about those solutions? Working with, like-minded people, organizations, companies, those that have the resources. Unfortunately, when there are resources, to be gained or a profit to be gained, we find that communities will be the back end of the story. Let's bring communities to the front of this. If we are talking about a new way of fishing, for example, that's going to be really profitable, let the community be the ones to run that venture. Yeah. We don't need one private, company coming in and taking up all the profit. So I would say, in a nutshell, what is most important is to, one, return our intervention discussions with the community, look at the long-term partnerships. This is not meant to be, a project-based intervention. We are looking at a lifelong intervention.
Yeah, thank you for that, Gina. Putting communities really at the forefront. I want to ask a last question before taking a look at our Mentimeter and seeing if there's questions from the home front for us. But we all know that around the world, the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, has made life even harder. Severe social impacts, economic impacts. Gina is saying it's true. So I want to ask both of you, Dion and Carola, how do you think we can, in our quests to build back better, as we say, to become more resilient, more inclusive in our recovery from this pandemic, how do you think we can find each other? Dion, you can't wait to answer.
I can go first. I mean, I think you're absolutely right, Lynn, and it comes back to this challenge of a paradigm shift. And I think in some ways the shock of COVID-19 globally provides us the mind space to think differently.
Yeah.
In our experience and the work that we've done through the Global Resilience Partnership and many of our partners, we've found that these grassroots organizations, federations at the local level are absolutely the fabric, the forefront, the front line of the response, the social response. And when we think of the impacts, let's just quickly reflect. 1.6 billion people, informal workers, put out of up to 80% of their income in a drop of a hat.
So you're saying almost 2 billion people are informal workers. So
exactly.
Your income is gone if
when
there's
lockdown hit, that was income, up to 80% of the income gone, and very little savings, food supply chains being cut off, being hit by compounding impacts. Many of these places were being hit by monsoons and hurricanes at the same time. This is a massive shock to the system. And the grassroots federations were the front line of that. And I think we should celebrate the role that they play without realizing that there are others with more responsibility who perhaps should be doing more. But the roles that they played included having in-depth knowledge about vulnerability, so being able to direct humanitarian help to where it is needed the most.
So again, there you need the local level knowledge.
Absolutely, knowledge, and they're collecting detailed knowledge, many of these organizations, and data, which is critical for the way that we're going to build back better. Their processes, they have inclusive processes that are trusted at the local level, which allows us to plan at the local level very well.
I want to stop you there and go through to you, Carola. How do you reflect on this resilient recovery? What do we do now?
Yeah, I agree with Dion. We need local level knowledge and action to do it in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And 2020 is a difficult year with the compounded triple crisis of climate change, COVID, and a number of conflicts. With pushing around 100 million people extra into poverty. This year alone is what the World Bank estimates. So, I mean, the case to act is there. That is clear. It has also shown us we can change quickly.
It has,
imagine
definitely.
how we act differently because of COVID and how we've changed ourselves overnight in a way that we thought would not be possible. So it should inspire us to also, in these other fields, and especially in the field of preventing climate change and adapting to it, we need to act more quickly. And there is tremendous investments being done in rebuilding economies after COVID. And we should really steer away from investing in the old economy of the past, but really take this opportunity to invest in the economies of the future, the ones that are sustainable and inclusive and green. And this is the last chance, actually, to do that, because there will not, again, be such enormous stimulus packages. And also, of course, we've lost time because of COVID, lost time to reduce global warming and to achieve the SDGs. So we need to make up for that time. We need to act smarter and work together better.
Because I wonder how you reflect on what Bio just gave us a message of times are urgent, let's slow down and be humble. How can we also be humble in this quest?
Well, my thing would be to really come together with different actors. It's not government, it's not NGOs, it's not scientists, it's not the private sector or whom else, it's all of us together. I think that the youth movement last year was such a powerful call for everyone in power of whatever kind to actually listen to the next generation and to collaborate better than before. So building back better means also listening to each other and collaborating better.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to see if our Mentimeter has brought us any questions. Okay, 9 questions I see. But how am I going to choose? What else can the international community do to hold national governments accountable? That's a great question. Can we see a few more? That's the code. Okay. What if we invest money that's redesigned so that it supports nature conservation, capacity building, and resilience, and can work as a leverage point? Yeah. We're talking to the converted. How do we really bring change? How do we really bring change? That is what we're trying to explore. Maybe this is a good one, because if we say that collaboration is such a shortcut to systems change, as we said in the beginning, and we're saying now that we really do need each other, what has hindered collaboration so far, and how have you overcome this? What qualities do we need to overcome this? Who wants to reflect on that from the panel?
I'm happy to take
that. I could have an initial go at that, and I would build on what Carola said. You know, we need different collaborations. We need new collaborations with new actors, and we need collaborations that the most powerful collaborations that I've been in contact with are ones that cross scale. Yeah. Ones that can be very local, but can aggregate those voices and have impact at a national and a level. So amplify, aggregate. Programs like we're celebrating today, I think, are incredibly important, and we should have more of them because they're able to bring local voices, and those local actors are by nature focused on what they're doing in their backyard, and they should be. That's what they do. But if we can aggregate those voices and then influence perceptions and power dynamics at a higher level, that's when we really get the systems change, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And we need voices, and we need a civic space that functions to be able to hear all voices. Maybe that's the last question that we can take from the audience. And Peter and Gina, I know you're still here with us as well. How can we protect and safeguard that civic space to make sure that we can actually hear the voices that we need to hear? Who would like to respond to that?
Yeah, happy to take that question, Lynn.
Everyone. Peter,
go
please
ahead,
go.
Gina, you take this first.
Oh, ladies first. Yeah, Gina, please, if you could reflect on this briefly.
Okay, I think the first place is always to come back to why are we even interested in this anyway? Who is being affected? When we answer these questions, we find that it's all of us as a planet, and that's why we are not all trying to do our own little thing in our own little corner. So when we acknowledge that fact, we will ensure that everyone has their role recognized and is supported in their role. That even goes as far down as children, learners in school. You know, let this not be simply something they learn about as a side subject, but it's embedded in curriculums. It's part of what the community or family is learning, so that when children go home, they're hearing the same message, and they grow up with the idea of conservation is life, it's our life, and it matters to all of us. And if I can just quickly add that and agree with what was said about COVID having, COVID-19 having been a propeller, I think, or platform that we all need to be together or to work together. Yeah. In going to communities, we've been able to talk about.
We do need each other. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to go to Peter for a last, very brief reflection. Sure. What you just wanted to say.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I couldn't agree more with Gina indeed on sort of bringing this really back to the grassroots level and into our families and where this needs to fall. But when reflecting on that question of preaching to the converted, I think it's very clear that global corporations really need to step up their efforts. And I think the Sustainable Development Goals are really a very important framework and anchor for them. And over the years, I've really seen also an ability and a willingness for them to open up and to really also work more with local organizations. And I think that is where there currently is a space to really search for more collaboration and also therefore have the financial backing of those global corporations to accelerate change.
Yeah, thank you for that. Wow, this was a rich conversation. Thank you to the panel. We have heard that this is actually our last chance. It's urgent, so let's slow down at the same time and think about our own roles and our own responsibility and how we can step up and how we can find support in others, how we can pledge and also live up to pledges, and how we can put the communities first by maybe taking a step back and giving space, actually. We have come to the end of our time together. We're even a few minutes over time, but I hope that you're all still with us because we're not going out without a bang here today. We're celebrating, we're bringing our artists back, and as they come back to the stage, we still had the Myanmar video for you. So as we set up here for our closing ceremony together with all of you, let's have a look at that preview.
Hi, hello, how are you? When I went to the community like forest, I feel like the place is so cool, and then like the weather is so nice. The people, the community there, they live like harmoniously with the forest, so they know that like how to use the resources from the forest, like to be last long and to be sustainable, like human rights and indigenous people rights, and also that rights, it's linked to the nature, like the forest, the nature resources. So that is really like open my eyes and to see like a bigger pictures. So I would like to say you that even you are not in Myanmar, you are part of Myanmar. So that I really want you to think that who are you and how your action can help other people and the planet, the world. Thank you so much, and see you later. Bye-bye.
Even though you're not where I am, you're still part of where I am, the message of that beautiful video. And with that, we close the celebration of 5 years of shared resources, joint solutions, and we thank especially the 202 local partners, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the program teams at IUCN NL and WWF that have worked very hard as well the last 5 years, and the WWF offices in the 16 countries. Program partners that were not even mentioned to this point, NCEA, VBDO, IID, and the international chapter of IUCN. And of course, our speakers here today, you watching at home, and our artists. And with that, we have a last surprise for you. Denise is back, Walter is back, Wolf is back, with a special guest now, Lorraine Kleiber, spoken word artist, multidisciplinary artist. You see some of our art here on stage as well, who happens to also have a master's in change management under her belt, and knows a lot about sustainability. So after our brains, our hearts have been touched, she's also here to inspire our souls and reflect on what we've heard. And I want to invite you at home to get up, sway to the music that's going to come in. Let's share in this moment together, and let's nourish ourselves as we continue on this quest to protect nature and people. Thank you.
Wow. Now is the time to look back, reflect, and connect, to continue how we can even make a bigger impact. Together, we have the keys in our hands to change sustainability. Now the question remains, how do we join hands to continue to collaborate as we celebrate all we were able to do in 5 years already with great appreciation, yet facing the challenges to move forward before it is too late. Tick tock, there is no time to waste. See, someone needs to say what needs to be said in order to do what needs to be done. If we truly want to be one, we can do better. We know we can and we should. We keep making plans for 2030, but you see, the future is now. The challenge is real. We are not spending resources on our common interest. The land, the sea, the air, the trees, the birds, the bees, the human beings, all is intertwined and connected in this world of biodiversity. For water, we are. Air, we breathe. Earth, we be.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, oh, what a wonderful world. Yeah.
The balance needs to be restored, back in harmony with Mother Earth, in harmony with each other and the environment, supporting one another, not destroying but restoring Mother Gaia. See, the land doesn't belong to us, rather we belong to the earth. So if you care, I dare you to share. We need trust and mutual understanding, for nature is demanding our continuous attention. Each and every one of us. Sustainability breathes loudly when individuals move collectively. Not shifting, but sharing. It's our joint response ability. We need to act upon our ability to respond across all levels of society. Include nature and each other beyond biodiversity, beyond sustainability, beyond gender, beyond race, beyond female energy, beyond all levels of being.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, oh, I love you.
If you care, I dare you to share your resources. Money to the local, trust. Let local people lead, facilitate their community. Release the need to control, listen deep. Facilitate the local community in need of sustainable prosperity. It's not a risk to fundamentally change. It's a risk to keep doing business as usual. The only risk is if we're failing to save our only home, our planet Earth.
And I hear babies cry. I'll watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, I think to myself.
Build bridges and long-term relationships. People, we need to support the local initiatives and finances. You need to dare to make the mind shift, the power shift. Shift your mind, because we can really do this. Let's share our resources, join forces for joint solutions.
It's a wonderful world, our world, yeah. Our world, Vanessa, our world, Madre Tierra, our world, my terra, our world.
Yes, people, be the change. Make the change. We can do this.
It's a wonderful world.